Good morning, everyone. Great pleasure. I'd like to launch the third of our early career research calls. So today we're going to give you information on the call, the benefits, how successful they've been, for various people who've been through this process already. Talk about a bit of support and things like that, and also hear from the different the different sort of areas within the scope. We have Peter Holloman, Arnold, Mark, and Claire, who are all our sort of champions for those areas, and then also a bit about the mentor and support as well for the ECRs. Just to give you a quick introduction, if you aren't aware of Sustain and the Sustain team, so we've been going for a few years now, and we're about halfway through. But the team itself, within the management side, there's Cameron, who's on. Everyone's on the call, so Cameron will be taking over from me quite shortly to give more information. There's me, so I sort of look after the management of Sustain. And we have also Professor Claire Davis and Mark Rainforth, who are spoke leads for their respective universities within Sustain. And of course, we can't do anything without the operations team. It's led by Sarah Roberts, with Becky, Brittany, and Ronnie. So if anybody needs any assistance while being involved with this sort of on the administration side, please get in touch with the team. We also have on the call Professor Peter Holloman. So he's the champion for the high temperature reaction and kinetics area within Sustain and within the scope of this call. Arnold Beckman, who is championing the computational modeling and big data side of things. Mark, it's metallurgy, characterization, monitoring, that side of things. And Professor Claire Davis for the metallurgical rules. We also have Frank Zhao and Peng Gong on the call who will speak a bit. They have already been through this process, and it's been quite useful for them, and they'll let you know a little bit more about that when they speak. But I would now like to pass over to Cameron.
Sorry, Rich, he's had internet problems. Do you mind carrying on?
I don't mind at all. So a little bit more information about Sustain. So the name Sustain, it's an acronym for Strategic University Steel Technology and Innovation Network. So as well as doing cutting edge research within steel, we're also trying to bring everybody together within the UK. It is a UK-based company for UK development, and effectively it is trying to bring the best from lots of different areas to modernise the steel industry by decarbonisation, and various other things that will make it more efficient in the future. The project is a 7-year project worth about 35 million. We're roughly halfway through it, and we have roughly 10 million of core funding from EPSRC within that. The rest is industrial support and various other support we've got from different companies and trade bodies and things like that. It's led by Swansea University. So we have our base down in Swansea with the two spokes of Sheffield and Warwick, and also some what we're calling mini spokes in terms of some of the other universities that we're bringing along with us that you'll see on further slides. We do work very closely with all of UK Steel, but in particular we work very, very closely with the British Steel, Tata Steel, Forge Masters and Liberty. It is all about academic and industrial collaboration. So we do obviously do the low TRL side of things, the great ideas and bringing that side of things in the lab work, but everything ultimately has to be practical, and we are here to solve the decarbonisation issues that we have within steel. So that very close industrial collaboration is very important. So the vision for Sustain, we're trying to provide some academic leadership for steel within the UK. It's not something we've had particularly in the past, but going forward, it's showing huge benefits for the steel industry and academia as well. We're looking to develop a 21st century workforce. We know in the UK that the steel industry has had a bit of a decline, so we're trying to help to fill some of those knowledge holes that exist from from sort of the previous methodologies of steel making, but also bring in, new knowledge and new ideas that would be essential for steel to flourish. It's all about carbon neutrality and zero waste. How far we can take that. Steel is already quite an efficient process, and that makes it, all the more difficult to make big gains. But we are, doing that, and we're finding lots of novel ways to drive down the amount of carbon that's released. And as many people probably know on this call, for every ton of steel that's made, we produce roughly 2 tons of CO2. And given that in the UK we produce 7 million tons of steel, and globally it's more like 2 billion tons of steel, that's a lot of CO2. So we've got to really work on that and ensure, as we do that we go for, the zero waste and the circularity side of things as well. A big aspect of sustain is about smart processes for smart products, which distilled down basically means, we want to use the latest in digital techniques and sensors and various other things to bring steel closer to something that is like a chemical process industry or beyond type of model. There are many challenges within steel: temperature, the environment's very harsh. So, it's not an easy thing to do, but that's, something that we're really pushing for to drive home the carbon neutrality side of things. Our ambitions, we want to be internationally leading in our research, and I think, we're very much getting there. We've had some amazing projects and some amazing publications have already come through Sustain. We want to help to increase the employment within the steel industry, which has, waned over the years. There's no reason why we can't have a flourishing steel industry in the UK, but it's got to be done in a modern format, low carbon, output, and we've got to ensure that we have all of the right people in the right places to do that. Our ultimate ambition is for carbon neutral steel making in the UK by 2040, and we want to double the steel GVA by 2030. So in terms of values, it's about collaboration for success and open innovation, responsible innovation and career development. And this is a big part of this, this ECR call and other things that we do within Sustain, because it's all about developing people and making them, leaders in their field, and getting them some very firm footings to get to that place. We want steel making that's fit for a healthy and resilient nation. And of course, as people sometimes don't realise, if something hasn't been made of steel, you need steel to make it. Steel is so important for all of the highly technical things that happen in the UK, and also the commodities that we enjoy. So steel is so important, and I can't drum that down enough. We're all about customer focus and supply chain integration as well. The UK supply chain it's seen better days, let's say that. For a new 21st century steel industry, we've got to be inclusive of the supply chain and maybe rebuild that as well from a circularity point of view with the latest decarbonisation technologies and techniques to drive things forward. Next slide, please, Becky. Just a snapshot of Sustain. Lots of the things I've mentioned are on the screen now, but you have in the middle there, the three circles interlinked, which shows the close working relationship that Swansea, Sheffield and Warwick have leading this project. And we also have to the left-hand side the companies, the main companies that we work with. Not all of them. We do work with many more, but these are the primary companies that we do work with. And then over to the right, some of the I guess RTOs and trade bodies and various things that we work with. UK Steel, for instance, we have a very close relationship with them, and we've got Henry Royce Institute, AMRC, specific MPI, Catapult, the high value manufacturing Catapult, MTC, WMG, all working together to try and take those low TRL ideas and upscale them and actually bring new ideas and techniques into that as well. So overall, Sustain is quite a large consortium that's ever growing, and we really want to invite people to join us and to develop their own careers and also help develop the solutions to the current problems within industry.
Do you want me to come in now, Rich? I've finally made it back online. So
You certainly can, Cam.
yeah, so thanks very much. Sorry everybody for my massive malfunction this morning. It's one of those days. Really, sustain is a big open door. One of the most important things that we want to try and achieve with this program is to get a lot of new people who might not necessarily have considered working within the steel industry or towards some of the steel industry's goals in the past, and really help to connect them with, you know, industrial and academic contacts who can help them to realize some really interesting and transformative research with impact on the industry, especially with, as Richard has already pointed out, in the decarbonisation space. And for that reason, we've spent a long time trying to foster additional connections within the academic network. You saw some of the new partners that we've engaged in the programme, and at Durham, UCL, Cardiff, and you can add Hull to that list as well, from the list of projects which we funded in the last year. Primarily up until now, we've been doing that by engaging through small projects that are really only there for the eligibility of permanent academic members of staff. And we've made a decision with this ECR call really to open this up and try to broaden that network within the ECR community more broadly across the whole of the UK. And that's the real difference about this call. And the thing that I find really exciting is we really want to engage you and support you in your career development, but also, you know, use the contacts that you have for the benefit of broadening the reach of the sustain activity and the network across the UK. So, you know, hopefully you get something from this in terms of the experience and of applying for the funding, but also the contacts that you'll make through the industry and the academic base if you don't already have those. And hopefully we benefit in terms of broadening the network and the reach of the things that Sustain are doing, and learning something new, because we expect to get nice, fresh ideas from people who aren't necessarily stuck in their ways and spent a lot of time thinking about these problems within the context of steel making for a long period of time. So we're really looking forward to getting those proposals in. The next slide, please. So to give you an idea of where to focus those ideas, we've got two grand challenges that broadly at a sort of high strategic level Sustain is looking to try and address. The first of these is really around the environmental sustainability of the industry, and there's obviously a lot of commentary around that, you know, more broadly internationally and in the news and things like that. You'll see that there's a strong drive for the energy intensive industries and the steel industry in particular within the UK to decarbonize, and that's a very hot topic without trying to avoid all of the puns. The purpose of this first Grand Challenge research area around carbon neutral iron and steel making is really about being able to prevent as much as possible CO2 impact of the steel making process. And that might be through direct emissions, but it's also about controlling the carbon that's embodied inside the materials that we might have through pre-production processes or even extraction processes, and the sources of the raw materials that we use in this industry, and also about how we harness some of the digital technologies to try and help us with that and maintain that within a more circular supply chain. So this is really about generating a sustainable foundation for the industry moving forwards. And then our second grand challenge area is around smart steel processing. And that's really about, well, we have to build this sustainable footing for the industry within the UK and of course internationally. And but once we've done that, we also need to make sure that the industry is holistically sustainable. So we need to make sure that they're at the cutting edge of technology, being able to deliver products and services, hopefully, to customers that are that provide value and are competitive on an international basis, so that they're actually making money. Because it's all well and good decarbonizing your business, but if you can't continue to make money, then you won't reap the benefits of that in the long term. So the focus of this second Grand Challenge research area for the program is really around, well, once you've got that sustainable footing, how do we improve the quality of the processes that we have? So how do we produce products with much lower energy footprints? And that's going to have a big impact. And there's a strong customer focus on having products that have got low embodied energy as we move into this new decarbonized age towards 2050. And to do that, we're going to be able to have to generate new processes for new products that are going to be heavily instrumented, give us direct feedback about what's happening with those products, and use advanced metallurgies, so metallurgical focuses of development for the products that these steel companies are making that have sustainability baked into it. Yeah, so there's no good in building or designing an alloy has fantastic properties, but isn't really something that's going to be environmentally sustainable on the long term. So we're really interested in ideas that help to contribute to delivering those benefits around that holistic sustainability, driving the future of the industry forward within the UK. Next slide, please. So to give you an idea of what we're doing now to try and address those things, here's a bit of an organogram of the research program as it exists so far. So this is really an overview of what we're going to be doing in the second half of this project. We're just over halfway through the SUSTAIN program now, because as I no doubt Richard has said, it's a long-term research program. And what we've prioritized for the second half of the project is really some work that combines resource efficiency through both the gaseous vectors and the solid vectors. So trying to think about resource efficiency more holistically and joining those activities together. So maybe Peter Holloman will say something a bit later about that as we go through to try and focus minds on what we might do on that. And there's some new work in there from Hull as well around how we use some of those processes to develop new products that might generate new markets for the steel industry. We have a strong focus, which is kind of central and underpins both of these two Grand Challenge research areas around digital technologies and how we can use those both to underpin the tracking of materials as they go around the circular supply chains for environmental benefits, but also improve the quality of our process metrology and modeling capability. And then we have activities that look at trying to reduce the embodied energy of the products and design new products for higher levels of resource efficiency. And you might hear more about that from some of the other team members as we get further on. So I'm quickly running out of time. So just why join and apply? And I think this is probably the most important thing. We want to develop a really strong network that is inclusive and diverse, and I mean that from the perspective of gender, ethnicity and things like that, of course, but also in terms of having fresh thinking and having young minds coming in with new ideas that could potentially be disruptive and really beneficial for the industry. So some new exciting ideas that some of us old fogies might not have thought out because we're too stuck in the mud. Yeah, and that's what we really want to encourage you all to do. We can help you by increasing your contacts within the industry and trying to help mold the ideas. The process itself is designed to be a learning and skills-based activity. So obviously, if you're successful, this is really going to help with your track record and your CV to demonstrate that you've been able to successfully secure and manage and run your own self-funded project from your own idea. And that's quite a unique thing to have on your CV as an ECR. But also, if you're unsuccessful, we hope that you're going to gain a lot of experience from this process. And that is the feedback that we've had in the past. So we have quite a rigorous assessment process and also feedback process that really helps you with any future applications that you might make in the future. So treat the whole activity as a skills-based activity to try and improve in the future, even if you're not successful with this call. The contacts that we have across the hub allow you access to facilities that you might really want to use but don't have immediate access to within your own institutions. And as I've already pointed out, it's really for us about trying to get those new, fresh ideas and changing up and challenging some of the stuff that we're doing within the hub. So we're really looking forward to try and welcoming you to do that. I believe we're going to have some of our previous ECR applicants talk about this. So and I'm not going to read out what's on the slide, but really there's been some really positive comments that we've had from some of the previous calls that we've run in this space about not just the research and the opportunity to do independent research on your own ideas, but also about the experience that this gains and the new skills that people have developed as a result of this program. And that really is a really important and strong focus for us. So we want you to take away, some of these things about how you can develop your career and hopefully catapult forwards on the basis of the SUSTAIN platform. You win on that basis, and we win too. You're going to hear from some of these people, but we previously funded ECRs with Frank, you'll hear from, so I won't go into that in too much detail. A life cycle based activity with Stephen Spooner, who's now gone on to gain a full-time academic position. At Coventry University, Peng, I think, will also talk to you, who's now got a full-time academic position. Matthew Burton has been working on thermoelectric generators, and then Fanfu, Jachi and Mo have all been working on more metallurgically focused activities at Warwick University, and really good opportunity for you to join this cohort of successful applicants and drive your career forward. So we welcome that. I think it's my opportunity now to hand over to somebody else. Is that right? Is that correct or not? Have I got that wrong?
Would you mind just introducing the scope areas?
Not at all. Yeah.
Very briefly before we hand over to the...
Yeah, of course. So the early career researcher 3 core scope areas are essentially broadly challenged to what aligned to what we have identified through Sustain as being the core underpinning scientific challenges. So I presented to you before the Grand Challenge research areas, which are really big ticket items that will transform the industry. But to achieve that, we have to focus on some specific scientific areas. And we've identified high temperature reactions in kinetics, which is led by Professor Peter Holloman down in Swansea University, who's waving there. Computational modeling and big data, which is led and mentored by Professor Arnold Beckman at Swansea University. Characterisation and monitoring of the materials, which is led by Professor Mark Rainforth at Sheffield University. And the development of new metallurgical rules, which is led by Professor Clay Davis at Warwick University. So now it's time for me to hand over.
Okay, so I'm looking after high temperature reactions and kinetics. I think basically what I would say, just picking up on what Cam and Richard said, we're looking for ideas, so don't feel limited by these. Things that are on these slides are just examples of the sort of things you might think about, but don't be constrained by them at all. So there's a lot of decarbonisation in this section. And everything that's happening in the steel industry is happening at high temperature. What is high temperature? You can define that. I'm not going to define that for you. It's not about us telling you what to think. It's the exact opposite. We want ideas. The sort of things we've got in there is non-fossil fuel carbon is one example. So how do you change away from that? We've got people also looking at how to capture and use the CO2 if you were interested in that as well. That all happens at high temperature, or can happen at high temperature. And it's all down to the kinetics. So if you were, what do you mean by kinetics? It's about rates of reaction. So if we could capture and reuse CO2 at the same rate as it's emitted from the steel industry, we wouldn't have a problem. Okay, so if you had something you might think about on that, that would be fantastic. If you click on Becky. So this is something about just raw materials. Is it a waste? Is it a raw material? Circularity. So in the middle there, we've got charcoal. On the bottom left, we've got car tires. At the top right, we've got domestic waste. And the bottom right, we've got processed domestic waste. And all of that could displace fossil fuel carbon. Instead of chucking it in the ground, why don't we use it? If you click on another one, Becky. Okay, and then we've got the cat picture, which is essential, obviously, for any talk. Circular economy. How do we spin things around so that they're not? How big do we make the loop? I suppose is what I would say to you there. You can say, okay, I want to put something in the sintering process, and I want it to go round and round and round the sintering process. Or you can say, I want it to go round and round the steelworks. Or you can say, actually, there's a cement company nearby, right over the road. Maybe we want to go it in a circle loop from the steel industry to the cement industry and back again. Or you can make it bigger than that. So just to finish, I would say Rich picked up on the fact that there's 4 billion tons of steel made in the world every year, which means there's 8 billion tons of CO2 associated with it. If we don't decarbonise the UK steel industry, all that's going to happen is that the steel is going to be made somewhere else. So we don't actually decarbonize the problem. So we just offshore it. So we need to sort this out in the UK, and maybe that goes abroad as well. So basically, if you have any ideas, please contact me. And I think the only reason I would say no to an idea is if someone else is already doing exactly the same thing, which is extremely unlikely. So please get in touch. Thank you.
Okay, my turn now. So hi everyone, my name is Arnold Beckmann. I'm kind of the outsider here. I'm coming from computer science, did know little about steel, but now after 3 years, I'm really excited and passionate about driving the digital side to the benefit of the steel industry. Maybe can we go to the second slide first, please? Yeah. So steel industry, as so many other industries, is one good example of big data. So it has the typical characteristics, or many of the characteristics, volume. So all these sensors and IoT devices are producing mass amounts of data. Velocity plays an important role. There's a speed at which this is created, variety. Given that this is an industry which has also legacy equipment, so there's a variety of data which needs to be included. Veracity, very important. How can we trust the data which we are receiving? And then value, very important. How do we make decisions based on that data? So not everything will have all 5 characteristics, but many things have many of those 5 characteristics. Can we go back to the previous slide? So the thing which and in the same way as Peter said, so I'm open to any idea which looks at the digital side within sustain and the grand challenges mentioned before, and driving ideas forward. But in particular, I'm interested in ideas which involve prediction, prescription, so embedding AI technologies in decision-making in relation to data coming from steel. I'm mentioning here statistical and symbolic AI. So this is one example of combining various AI technologies. I'm interested in any combination. So it doesn't have to be statistical and symbolic, but any kind of hybrid AI using various AI methods together would be very interesting. But if you have other ideas, please get in touch with me. I'm open to anything which makes good use of the data, makes use of AI in the context of sustain and the steel industry. Thanks. Next one, please.
Okay, so this is over to me. We know that microstructure defines the properties of all materials, and steels particularly. Processing, of course, is designed to manipulate that microstructure to end up with the properties that we want. And we often end up with very complicated mixture of different phases in steels. After all, steels are probably more complicated than most other materials that we have. Small changes in that process, whether it's during hot working or in heat treatment, can give really quite dramatic changes in the microstructure and therefore the properties. Next slide, please. One of the problems we have, of course, is the length scale problem, that we make hundreds of tons at a go, but we know that in all sorts of ways, what happens at the atomic scale controls the properties, whether it's segregation at boundaries or the nature of an interface between precipitate and the matrix. Lots of different things there that can adjust the properties. So we literally have pretty much a 10 to the 12 length scale issue in terms of characterizing what we look at and understanding how that affects the properties that we get out at the other end. Next slide, please. We're driving increasingly towards higher performance steels, and Therefore, understanding the properties is ever more important, but at the same time, we have ever more tighter specifications, and achieving those specifications becomes increasingly difficult. So another area here is the real-time sensing during the processing of the steel, so that we can actually monitor microstructural changes online to give live feedback to adjust the process to give us the microstructures that we want. So it's not just characterization here of the microstructures at the end, it's very much characterization of what is going through the plant as it goes through. So it's a huge broad area, lots of scope for ideas within that area. Okay, that's me.
Good morning, everyone. But in the area of metallurgical rules, a lot of this refers to the steel that we're making. As was mentioned earlier, it's great if we can decarbonize the industry, and that is absolutely a priority. But we also have to make steels that are desirable to customers and meet the requirements. And to do that, we need to understand how the processing stages affect the microstructure. So we need the characterization, but we need to also develop the rules to allow us to be predictive about achieving those properties. In this particular challenge, then we want to look at extending and developing our knowledge on these metallurgical rules. And this can be by modeling, it can be by experimental approaches, it can be by a coupled approach. We're not prescriptive on how we develop and extend our knowledge on these metallurgical rules. We're also not prescriptive on where this needs to be through the process. It might be looking at it from the as-cast structures to be able to improve casting approaches for difficult to cast alloys if we're looking for new alloy developments, or it could be in terms of product property performance. So understanding the metallurgical rules that influence springback and strip forming for a customer requirements in the automotive industry, that we're actually quite agnostic about where it fits within steel metallurgy. I've mentioned here some of the different approaches, and we are interested in understanding how some of these rules would fit into the different modeling scales, even if you're developing it from an experimental point of view, and then seeing how it fits into the continuum is particularly important. For many of you, if you're going to do either the experimental route or the modeling route, validation is important. There's a lot of data in the literature. Please do use that. It's very good to use data where it is available, and full provenance quality data is becoming more and more accessible. But within the different labs at the universities that form the core of Sustain, we all have rapid alloy processing facilities which allow both lab-based or commercial materials to be processed. So if you need support to do validation work, and you don't necessarily have the facilities where you work, don't worry, get in contact, have a discussion with us. We can point you in the direction of either data that already exists or trials that could be done on your behalf within the labs, working with you to support your ECR project. Next slide. This really sort of applies to all the different challenges, but perhaps just to help guide a little bit of thinking is, one, to identify what area of the metallurgy and metallurgical principles you're interested in. But I'd really push to make sure that everybody considers what is the state of the art. We want to be pushing boundaries, and we're looking at you to have good and clever ideas, but you do need to put that in the context of what is already known and look to see where that would be an extension. Identify the work that's required. Don't worry if you don't have facilities for all of it, come and talk to us early, and we can be supportive in terms of doing that. And I'd also say about this, outcomes and impacts. One of the things we say, the so what question of, if you do that work, what will be the implications? Doesn't mean that, again, it has to be within the project, but having that awareness. We want to be able to have that discussion and ask that question of how will that information be used, and that becomes a relevant part. And particularly, how might it be used by other academics, or how might it be used by the industry partners? And it's really about making sure that you've been pushed to think. Next slide, thank you.
Okay, so I think it's over to me. So you've got a good idea, hopefully, now of the technical areas that you could fall into, and the purpose of that, as has already been pointed out by all of the theme champions, there is really about not being prescriptive about the ideas that you have or trying to package them in a way, but it's just to try and identify the relevant experts, and you can think, right, I think it would be useful to speak to one or maybe two of these people to try and help you sculpt your idea. And it really is about that. It's a support mechanism for you to try and develop a successful proposal. So please do make best use of that. Beyond that, of course, we have goals for the applicants around what the benefits of this wider activity are. I think I've highlighted some of them earlier on, but I mean, this really is a genuinely unique opportunity for ECRs to apply for EPSRC funding. I'll probably add, we were recently assessed in Sustain by EPSRC in an independent panel, and they really pulled out this activity as something quite unique and exemplary in terms of the way these things are handled. So we're hoping to try and take this sort of activity forward and expand it. So it really is a unique and well thought of opportunity. It should enable you to build a platform on which you can sort of launch your career or accelerate your career in terms of demonstrating that you're, you know, somebody who can be trusted with the funds and deliver projects. I think that's very important. And consider, as part of your application, this is important, what this means to you as an individual and how that's going to help you progress your career. So the technical elements of the proposal are, of course, important, but we're also in this to develop people. And so think about what the impact of this will be on you and what your plans would be to use this funding after this project has come to an end to try as a springboard to develop your career. So where are you going to go next? Perhaps that's through a fellowship application or something like that. But consider that and think of that as part of your proposal. And to support you in this, we also have identified some development champions who are there more from a mentoring perspective. So less technical support, but more to try and help develop a cohort from some people who've got experience of this. So their role is to share their experiences and how they've, from a career development perspective. It's also about how to help you, guide you through that application process and maybe learn from some of the mistakes that they've made in the past, offer to what some one-to-one mentoring and support, and hopefully beyond what I've said to you, define what some of the benefits to them are as well. And once the projects are finished, maybe being part of a cohort that helps you to launch that career forward after the Sustain ECR, should you be successful. So there's no two better people to do that than some of our previous successful applicants. So I'd like to introduce you both to I think first Frank Zhu and then also Peng Gong from Warwick and Sheffield universities originally, respectively. Peng has now moved on to Newcastle University in a permanent academic post. And they're going to talk to you a little bit about their experience of this call in the past and what benefits it's had to them. So Frank, I think it's over to you first.
Yes. Oh, thank you very much, Cameron, for the introduction. So, hi everyone. My name is Frank Zhou. I'm an assistant professor at University of Warwick. So I really think the ECR project has been very, very good and beneficial to the early career researchers. And I got successful in applying in the first round, and I'm here to share some of my experience. So the first one is just a quick introduction of what I have applied for. So I think the maximum you can apply for is 6 months full-time, but I applied something so that I do 50% part-time on the project as well as my original research project within the Sustain. So that's then spread across 12 months. So the research projects that I did is on the effect of temperature on magnetic properties of steel. So by the title of that, you will realize it's a very fundamental kind of research. But then how does that then linked to the electromagnetic measurements at a steel mill is the link then to the steel industry. So then, when I go through the application process, here are a few things that I really focused on. So the first one is you will get a application pack. So you will get guidance on, how this will be assessed and what information is needed for you to fill in the application form. So I think not only just try to fill the form, but have a think about why do they require those information. I think a lot of the sections in the application form clearly indicate what is it that the assessors want to look at. And then I think a lot of the time, as an early career researcher, we know what can be done, but for a proposal, it's really about justify why this is need to be done and what's the impact of the proposed work. So it's really important to know the state of the art and then bring in that motivation and impact as well into your proposal. So, and I think as you have heard a lot that within the sustain theme, and of course within the UK and the international research community, there is a lot that is already going on. So it would be nice to know the state of the art, know what is currently being doing for the research project that is related to your proposed area, but then thinking about how could your proposed work then be in benefit to those, or work in parallel, or how can you work with other funded projects, but it needs to be different than what is currently funded. So you can't just take what you are doing at the moment and then just turn that into a proposal, because then that's not your original and the new research project. Very important to then start to talk to industrial people, and this is great opportunity for you to develop your link and your research area, and do a clear plan of the work. So don't wait until you get funded and then think about what you do, but really think it as, I'm going to do this. This is exactly what I'm going to do within that 6 months or 12 months time. Next slide, please, Becky. So of course, this has been this was a new thing for me as a, applying as a PI for proposal was quite new to me. So the challenges that I faced, one is be able to present your ideas and all the details within like the 2-page. So you have to think that not everyone is in your technical field. So you need to, do a high-level summary and also be able to communicate in the way that other people would also find that you know what you're talking about, but also this is very important. After I got the awards, then there is also the, being the independent self-management and manage the resource. These are, really different than the life that I spent as a postdoc kind of researcher, because then there is, money and resource that you need to manage. You need to think about if something doesn't work. So those are the risk factors. Then how are you going to deal with them? It has been really, great help with my career, because what I've proposed in the ECR has got then developed into a much larger fellowship proposal, which is in application now. And this experience of not only proposing a project, but then manage the project as a principal investigator is very unique. Most of the early career researcher postdocs will find not many opportunities to apply as a PI, where this scheme does allow you to apply it as a PI. So it's a really great experience there. And at your own project, you may or may have not developed some industrial partners, but then this developing stage of your proposal, and if you are successful of the proposal, is then also a great opportunity to develop your link in the areas area that you are interested in. So you start to form your academic and industrial partnership, which is really good. Next slide, please. So if there will still be an interview at the later stage, then my experience is, firstly, you want to be passionate and confident about your own proposed research, because if you are not interested or passionate about your proposal, then it's very difficult for others to realize how important that is. And really, think a bit broader. You have already seen the 4 different themes and areas, but think it broader. How does your proposed research, whether that's fundamental, how do they impact the broader area? So that will really help to present your proposal to a much wider research audience. So I would say that with any proposal writing or application, don't worry about not getting it. It's always going to be successful or unsuccessful. But what I have found is you really get a lot of feedback, and you learn a lot through the process anyway. So even if you are not successful, you still learn quite a bit. And that's in a way very unique in this application, because not all the proposed application will provide you all those feedback. Definitely try to do it early. Don't leave it until the last week and then write something. So do it early, get support from others. You get already the information of some of the technical supports that you can get through the Sustain Hub. There's also going to be this one-to-one meetings with myself or Peng, that you can get support from a different point of view. Not much technical, but it will be more focused on sharing my experience, and then looking at the proposal. Does that make sense? Can you explain it in a way that people with a general science and engineering background will be able to follow it and think it's impactful? Thank you very much. I think I'll pass it to Peng now.
Thank you, friends. And my name is Peng Gong, and I'm originally in Mark Renfrew's group in Sheffield University as a research associate, and appreciate for the support from the STEM project. I apply from the, I have a clearly idea of my career development pathway. So right now I moved to the Newcastle University as a lecturer, and to talk about my my benefit to learn from my ECR project core. I was awarded funding for the ECR project on the first call on the topic of the processing design of new ferroactive ferromagnetite steels, and through this call I learned how to prepare the proposal, and how to apply the grants fundings from the EPSRC or from the other funded calls. So this call led me to have the skills on the proposal writing, and also build my network with industry people, as well as from this call I have the ideas on how to delivery of my results, and how to deliver my ideas to be the real output. And also through this call, I have the skills on team management skills, and also collaboration skills, as well as this call helped me to learn with the senior academics how they running the project, and this will help me to build my own career research, my own career, my research career development, and also build my link with the industries. So that's my experience to learn from my ECR project. And
Hi everyone, just a bit of information about eligibility. So we have a 200k available to fund 4 awards at 50k each at 80% FEC. So this basically means that Sustain will fund up to 50,000 and the university that you work for will fund the remaining 20%. And this is normal practice. So the call is open to all early career research UK academics across all UK institutions. And the guidance expands on the eligibility. But it does state that if you're eligible to apply for UKRI research funding already, then you're not eligible to apply for this call. So this is definitely for early career people like yourselves. Existing previously awarded applicants, they can apply provided that the new proposal focuses on a significantly different area of research. So next slide, please. Right, so the call opens today, 25th of April. We have surgery sessions set up between the 9th and the 19th of May, where you can talk to our scientific challenge leads, our ECR mentors, and you can talk to myself about the finance. And you also have an opportunity to speak to Cameron, who is our lead PI. We have 2 dates there on the 9th of May and again on the 22nd of May. And the deadline to submit your application is the 7th of June. So you can apply directly, as you can see on the graph there, but it is advised, as Frank said, that you take advantage of speaking to our experts. It really will help you produce a more rounded application with everything that you need. It's worth mentioning here as well for submission, we have a list of what you need to submit with your application in the guidance. But letters of support, we'll just highlight here. So you must provide letters of support from your line manager. And so that's to confirm that the time and the facilities required for your research are approved. And you also need to provide a mandatory letter of support from your institution, just to say that they will support the 20% funding that's required with your application. And to strengthen your application, it is advisable that you provide a letter of support from any industry partners or other organisations that you're working for. And you will need to pursue these letters as soon as possible because they do take longer to arrange. So once your application is submitted, it will be scored against criteria. And this criteria is also set out in the guidance. So please look at that and see what we're looking for when we're scoring. We're currently arranging an impartial panel of experts to assess these applications. And we also have interviews set up, as you can see there, in July time. And what we're planning to do is to interview all applicants that apply if we have the time and the resource, because we'd like to give you the experience of going through the interview process as well. So you can see the panel meeting is at the end of July, and then we have the outcomes announced to everybody at the beginning of August. That's it. I'm not sure if anyone's going through surgery sessions, but you can see there the surgery sessions that we have available and that we've organised. So please email info@sustain as below if you'd like to have a chat with any of our experts. And there's some more surgery sessions there regarding the mentoring with Peng and Frank and anything to do with the finance. And as we said, we've got 2 dates there with our lead PI Cameron as well.
All this information is available on the Sustain website as well, so don't worry about quickly taking a picture or anything. And as Sarah mentioned, the guidance that should now be live on the ECR3 webpage on the Sustain website as well. I think Brittany's put a link in the chat to that to be able to find that information. If there's anything you can't find, please email us at that email address as well. And we'll try and help with any queries. So yeah, any questions at all, first point of contact is that email address that's on screen now. And I think we've got a little less time than we hoped at the end, but for any questions that have come up, if you'd like to use the Q&A, we'll get our panelists to turn their cameras back on and try and answer any questions, or if there's anything else that's come up that they'd quickly like to mention now before we close.